Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And who is he? Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, board-certified criminal defense lawyer. I've been practicing about 25 years, and to be a board-certified practitioner in any field, let alone law, it demonstrates a certain proficiency or an expertise in that area. So I don't do wills and trusts. I don't do intellectual property. I only do criminal defense. I do some injury work if it's a bigger case, but primarily I do criminal defense. So here's the thing. Today we're reacting to Darrell Brooks, but before we get to Darrell Brooks, guess what? This is brought to you by eForms.com. You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? It's brought to you by eForms.com. eForms.com. If you need a form for any kind of legal proceeding, let's say your sister is tweaking out on meth, and she's living in your basement, and she's also doing some other crazy shit, and you need to get her out. She's not paying any rent, and she's just at an absolute load. Well, the way you get her out is you don't just push her out the door, because that results in something. Go to eForms.com. You get an eviction notice. Doesn't matter what state you're in. And then you file that yourself. You can do these things on your own. Don't hire a guy like me, because guess what I do? I would just go to eForms.com and charge you a shit ton of money. So that's eForms.com. We love them. So here's the thing. Darrell Brooks just got sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences. The man is never going to see the light of day. He's going to be in prison until his last breath. So let's kind of see a couple moments from that proceeding.
I'm not even here to say that some of those things can't coexist and you might not have some of your own mental health issues, whether it be bipolar, childhood trauma, or things of that nature. But the bottom line is none of that caused you to do what you did on November 21 of 2021.
First of all, when you're up for sentencing, it is a solemn time because the victims get to have their say, right? And in all practicality, it doesn't matter what the victims are saying, doesn't matter what Brooks is going to say. The judge is confined to give him life without parole because of the conviction. However, because there are victim rights statutes, the victim has the right to be heard, and the defendant has the right of allocution. So you have to go through these. And they're gut-wrenching. So the way this works is the prosecution goes kind of first. The judge will say, are there any victim impact statements? And Lord knows there were in this case. And then the prosecutor will give their pitch. And then the defendant has, well, the defense lawyer, he's representing himself in this case, but the defendant has the right of allocution. He's got the last word, basically. And that's where you look for acceptance of responsibility, remorse, anything to show that, look, I'm sorry this happened. I can't take it back. It really doesn't mean anything because he's going to get life anyway. So, but what he did is he acted out, and then the judge is going to remove him from the courtroom. So take a look at this.
I want to next turn to the trial in this case. I think it's important that the sentence here today focuses on your conduct on November 21 of 2021 and the moments leading up to that tragic and fateful decision of yours to drive through the Waukesha Christmas parade, and of course the moments after.
She's setting this up because when you have sentencing, first you have your trial, right? And then once you're convicted, there's a big difference. You're entitled to bail before getting convicted, but once you're convicted, you're no longer entitled to bail. So she holds him without bail. Then they usually do a pre-sentence investigation. And then what that is, probation goes through and talks about your family history, your financial health, your the offense, and all, everything in between. Then you come back for sentencing. And so what she's trying to do here is lay kind of the ground rules of where this is going to go. Because she knows he's been a complete prick this whole time and just been an obstructionist throughout every possible moment of these proceedings.
I, of course,
And you see during the trial, he was wearing a suit. They can't have jail clothes. They try to hide the fact that the person's in custody from the jury so that they don't inappropriately convict him based upon that factor. But now that he's convicted and he's up for sentencing, guess what? He's back in orange.
through my sentencing remarks and ultimately what I do here today, I can't answer all of the questions. I can't address all of the issues, including the why. Perhaps the one question that will remain unanswered. Why? Why did you barrel down White Rock Avenue? Why did you not stop? Why did you keep going? Many of us in this courtroom sat through the entire trial. And what we learned is that very early on in the afternoon of November 21, starting at around 1 p.m., the police got ready for the parade. The staging area was set up, and that was all along White Rock Avenue. Signs were put in place. Ultimately, barricades were put up.
One of the things a judge does a lot of times is try to make sense of a case. So her audience isn't just the people in the courtroom. It's also the record that she's creating for the Court of Appeals.
Right before the start of the parade, had driven down the parade route. It was on his shoulders, his responsibility to make sure everything was safe and in order. What's important about that staging area, sir, is we know that is where the altercation with Erica Patterson really came to a head. We all watched that video, multiple videos. And we know that even before that, you appeared angry and upset. 2 individuals testified about you being at that mobile gas station, how you turned the wrong way down a one-way street, waved your hands in the air, rolled down your window, either exchanged gestures or words with one of the drivers. Perhaps 30 minutes or so before the start of the parade, maybe an hour or so before you drove down the parade route.
These sometimes are hard to listen to because you don't know where the judge might be going. Sometimes if the judge is on the fence on a particular case, you try to gauge, which way is the judge going to go? Is the judge going to put me in prison or is the judge going to give me probation? And that happens a lot. No, there's no guessing in this case.
The witnesses related to Ms. Patterson, we heard from Corey Runkle, we heard from Erica Patterson herself. My impression, based upon Erica Patterson's testimony, who, by the way, she showed grace and dignity facing you, the man who...
Now, let's talk about that concept a little bit. We've talked about the term, or I've talked about the term grace, and it's grace under fire, really, because this has got to be the most, for a victim or a victim's family to appear in court and face the person that caused whatever damage that we're talking about. And here it took a life, or 6 lives, and injured quite a few others. To face that person in open court, and you could, like we show you in the Jeffrey Dahmer one, where they just go berserk because they're so raw with grief. But to have grace and give somebody forgiveness, or to, or just to, and I've talked about this, when it really is remarkable. Like we had that one video where the father of the guy that was killed, he got down off the stand and hugged his son's attacker. That's where we need to be as a country. And that's what she's talking about here.
Clearly has no regard for her as a mother of one of your children, as someone you had a domestic partnership with and a relationship with at one point.
That's not true.
We know, and I would say this goes to your...
Now, you heard him just say that's not true. You hear him mumble that under his breath. Guess what? The judge doesn't like that. When the judge is talking, you're not allowed to speak.
character, what was shown through that altercation and going up the hill, following her, slapping her, the rules don't matter to you, not the rules of the road, not the rules established by court orders, not the rules even of decorum and decency. And I'll get to this more fully when I talk about your character. And I know you went hard at Attorney Opper for her bringing these things up, but those are legitimate, lawful sentencing considerations. And when I get to that point, I'll tell you the case law that supports that. Your character, even your pending cases.
I don't need no case law.
I don't need no case law. That sounds like somebody who still remains defiant.
She told you where she was. She invited you out there. And that you had contact with her on the 20th. There was some physical.
Contact with her on the 20th.
Mr. Brooks, this is my time. You need to not interrupt.
That's the reason why the charge was dropped.
Mr. Brooks,
the state
you need to stop.
said specifically, wrote you, Your Honor, and said that they know it was no incident that day.
Mr.
And
Brooks,
now you want to sit up here.
do not interrupt me or you will be removed to the other
and now
courtroom.
you want to sit up here
Stop.
and try to
now.
add something in that you know for a fact.
Guess what? Time to go to the other courtroom. I mean, he just has no sense. But it doesn't matter at this point, really.
Never even happened. You want to sit up here
Mr.
and talk
Brooks,
about
every
who has
time-
grace and all this. You talking about someone with 5 kids that don't have custody.
You need to stop
None of
right
them.
now or you will be removed.
Remove me then.
All right? He will be removed. He cannot simply stay
I don't
quiet when
consent
this
to being
court talks.
sentenced anyway. I don't consent to this, just like I told you. I don't know the.
He'll be in recess until he's
I don't
removed
even
to the other
understand
courtroom.
the.
So, it really doesn't matter in a sense. But the judge is just taking way too much of his shit. So this is the moment when the judge actually pronounces sentence.
This is a case that falls squarely on the need to protect the community. I referenced this earlier. There's really 3 primary reasons for the sentences I will impose here today. One is punishment, one is to protect the community, and the other is to provide justice and closure to the victims. Because under that category of need to protect, the court does get to consider the impact of these crimes on the victims.
So, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but he had some kind of domestic, thing that happened before, and that's what she was talking about in the prior video, that he was upset and he saw that everything was barricaded, but plowed through everything without any regard for what was in front of him, just because he was pissed off. And that happens so much in domestic cases, where people just cock off for absolutely, probably the dumbest reason. They got slighted, or they couldn't see their kid, or something, and then they just pop off and, think before you act. And those are some of the worst cases that I deal with.
4 of those blocks were turned into a scene that frankly is no different than a war zone.
So now he's in another courtroom because she removed him from the courtroom during sentencing.
This court is imposing a life sentence without the possibility or eligibility for extended supervision consecutive to one another. 1 life sentence for Virginia Sorensen.
Now, you're not supposed to clap either, but it's hard to contain yourself on some of these things.
1 life sentence for Leanna Owen. 1 life sentence for Tamara Durand. 1 life sentence for Jane Kulik. 1 life sentence for Bill Hospel. And 1 life sentence for Jackson Sparks.
So the judge talked about consecutive versus concurrent. Well, not concurrent. She didn't say the word concurrent, but that's what it is. So when you're charged with multiple offenses, you can be charged consecutively or concurrently. Consecutive means one after another. So if I got 3 misdemeanors, for example, and all were 90 days, and the judge sentenced them consecutively, I would have to do 270 days to satisfy that sentence. If the judge did them concurrently, I would only have to do 90 days, and all 3 run concurrently at the same time. So if there was ever a possibility for him to get out on any of these, he would have to serve whatever prison time before he would be eligible for parole 6 times. So even if he was eligible for parole on any of these, the time that it would be well over his lifetime before he would be eligible. But these are life without parole.
On counts 7 through 67, these are 61 counts of
7 through 67. That's a lot of counts. That's just a lot of stuff to get through. So that's why she's going to do them all kind of at the same time.
And I'd ask that everyone no longer show any reaction to the sentence so I can get through this. On counts 7 through 67, on each count I will impose a total sentence of 17 and a half years. 12 and a half years of initial confinement, plus 5 years of extended supervision, consecutive to any other sentence that I've imposed here.
So that means after you serve the life without parole, it's kind of academic, really, because he's never getting out of prison.
Today, that is 762 and a half years of initial confinement.
Jeez.
And 305 years of extended supervision on top.
So you're saying I got a chance? I mean, give me a break.
The life sentences that I've imposed. That is 17 and a half years, sir, for Nicole White. 17 and a half years for Eleanor Andrews.
So she's going to go through all these names. We're not going to go through all these names. But you can see how he represented himself. He didn't do a very good job. And now he's facing that pistol charge and some other assault charge. And in that case, guess what? He's got a fucking lawyer. And not only that, they tied him to a wheelchair, and so he can't get up. I think he also might have been on suicide watch, if I remember correctly. I read something about that. Anyway, so no one's gonna have to worry about him getting behind the wheel or getting on the road or being out in public to cause any more damage. And this judge has done, and he's going to appeal. So, he's his own worst enemy when it comes to the appeal, because I don't think he's got a whole lot of room there. Anyway, this has just been our reaction to the sentencing of Darrell Brooks. I'm Bruce Rivers. Make sure you go to Bonfire, you look at our merch, and get stuff for Christmas and for all your loved ones, because guess what? You might have somebody that's about to say that they did something in front of a cop. You wear that hat, they're going to say, hey, I know what Bruce said. Stop self-snitching. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. Make sure you sign up for Patreon. Make sure you follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058. That self-snitching gon' get you put away. 23-hour lockdown, please, is that my God?